This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth.
That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Right?
That's a New England Patriots where were you moment. Brady to Moss, right, in 07 is up there, 28-3, of course, going chronologically here. Quinn Nordine going 10 for 10 in the in-stadium practice, and Mac Jones against the Giants in joint practice.
Right up there with Brady to Moss to break the all-time touchdown record and receiving touchdown record. A joint that's what this time of year is all about, though, right? Is overreacting and getting too excited about a joint practice in the middle of August. And I feel like I have some takes that people don't like about some of the younger receivers, about some of the things where I'm just like, let's not get their sizing for the red jacket just yet. Let's just let them play a couple games. But it's Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, Patriots Catch-22 with you. We're going to do the full 2 hours today. We're going to lead right into Patriots Unfiltered with special guest Alex Barth, because I have to get on a plane again and go to Nashville here in a couple of hours. Woe is me, right? Oh, God,
poor Evan.
Go watch football
you jumped me on that one.
Oh, man. Anyways, but yeah, we'll have you up till Patriots Unfiltered, and we got a lot to talk about. I do want to go back. I know we've turned the page from the Packers a little bit, but I do want to go back and talk a little bit about the Green Bay game. I have some takes, not anything to do with the end of the game, but more takes about the actual game itself. And we're going to do some roster projection stuff. We're not going to go through the entire roster projection, but we're going to go through some of the hot button positions, running back, receiver, offensive line, maybe some of the defensive spots too. So we'll do a little bit of a jump around there on the roster projections, and then we also have some players to watch for you guys tomorrow night in Tennessee. So
somebody in the chat has a good one too if we need to fill 4 hours.
What is it?
A sleeper on offense and defense that will be a major contributor that nobody's talking about.
All right, I like that as well. We'll get to all of it, but I do want to. I have some things that I'm excited about and things I'm not excited about from Saturday night in Green Bay, and so I'm going to pitch them to you, and then you can tell me if I'm overreacting, underreacting, whatever the case may be. So we're a positive show. We like to keep it positive as much as we possibly can. We're objective, but we're positive. And so I want to start
I think the two are confused often.
I want to start with the good, what I'm excited about. And I think the main thing that I came away from Saturday night excited about is this is the type of offense that Bill O'Brien is designing and installing here in New England in his second stint. This is the type of offense that I have wanted Mac Jones to be in since the day he drafted him. Right, the day that they drafted Mac Jones in the first round, I've been clamoring for all of the things that Bill O'Brien has given me in just a short period of time, and I'm excited to see what it looks like 2 months from now. Like, if this is where we're starting,
right,
let's see what it looks like in a couple of months, and it's going to be even better. I know everybody already knows I'm obsessed with RPOs. I love RPOs. I don't care who knows. I love RPOs. Those are in the offense. Empty. I love some of the things that they did out of empty. I love how they're calculating deep shots, but they're more about efficiency. Deep shots off of under center play action, seam shots out of empty. Like, those are the types of throws that I want to see Mac Jones making down the field. I don't want to spread it out and be Bruce Arians like last year, right, where we're just running 9-8-9, go post and trying to chuck it down the field. I want to be more calculated with how they take their chances down the field, and I think they're going to do that. And I love the control at the line of scrimmage, the ability to check in and out of plays, all of the things that we talk about, like what are the good traits of Mac Jones. It's great that they're empowering him to use his mind again, because I think that's really a strength of his game. And it's not just pre-snap. I think a lot of people are getting caught up in some of the checks and some of the adjustments. That's good too. But post-snap, the route adjustments, the sight adjustments that they're making, the option routes that they're running, like those are the types of things as well that I think he is going to be a step ahead on, both with the defense, and then when you get everybody on the same page, that will be really good as well. But I think that helps him not have to make a ton of tight window throws down the field. And I know some people see arm strength concerns, see mobility concerns with Mac Jones, and look at the ceiling with the offense under Mac Jones. But for me, if you do all these types of things, if you give him these answers to the test, those tools that he likes to talk about at his disposal, and you allow him to really just distribute the football and be a step ahead of the defense, that's going to be how Mac Jones is going to be at his best. So schematically, X's and O's wise, the concepts themselves, I love what they're doing. It's basically the 2011 Bill O'Brien offense combined with Alabama's offense. I think it's disingenuous or incorrect to say this is anything like what they did with Josh McDaniels. I really feel like this is significantly different than what they ran with McDaniels. This is McDaniels was, and I'm not, I love McDaniels, so I'm not crapping on McDaniels, but McDaniels was a 2-back under center base formation team. That was how they played first and second down, with the fullback in the backfield, power run game, lead ISO, play action off of it. Like, that's McDaniels. This is a spread system with a lot more college bells and whistles with the RPOs and with the motion and things like that than what they did in 2021. So I think this is a whole new thing. Mac called it a melting pot of some of the things that they've done here in the past, and some of the things that he did at Alabama and Bill O'Brien did at Alabama. I'm giddy about the scheme. Will they run it at as high of a level as it possibly can be run at? That's a totally different conversation that we'll get into. But in terms of what they're drawing up on the whiteboard, this is exactly what I've wanted to see.
Yeah, and just to go back to something you talked about there, comparing it to the Josh McDaniels offense, we've heard players say, "Oh yeah, it's some new stuff, some of what we did last year, some of what we did before." I wonder if that's maybe like terminology.
Yeah,
there are elements you see where it resembles stuff they did with McDaniels, but from that spread base rather than from that pro base, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but overall, yeah, it's so funny. I was comparing it to somebody the other day, just watching that offense on Saturday night. It's like seeing an old friend you haven't seen in a while. Some of the stuff they're doing. Like, oh, RPO, where have you been? Look at that, Kendrick Bourne in the offense. I missed you, bud. You look good, like stuff like that. And so, yeah, even things as simple as, again, Kendrick Bourne being involved to some of the schematic stuff they're doing. It's, to use your analogy all the time, they're already at, last year, what were they at, like a 4th, 5th grade level? They're already at like a 10th grade level now, and it's going to they're going to build from that, because you don't show all the bells and whistles in the preseason. You grow from that point. And so, and there's reason to believe, seeing what they did the other night, like schematically, they can grow. I think they can get better too, but there's also, you set stuff up. How are you going to build off this stuff you're setting up? You're not going to show that in the preseason unless you're Jeff Fisher in the 2009 Hall of Fame game, for some reason breaking out the greatest fake punt of all time in a game that means nothing. So I was really encouraged by what I saw schematically from the offense. Now it's on the players to execute it. This is kind of when we get the answer. I was somebody who very effusively said last year, the roster's better than what the product on the field indicates. They're not being put in a position to succeed.
You're going to be put to the test on that one.
We're going to figure it out, because I think, and it's 3 drives, but based on what we saw Saturday night, the things Mac Jones was doing are things he does well. The things Kendrick Bourne was being asked to do are the things he does well. Devontae Parker, but the offensive line we'll get to, but everybody else I felt like was put in a spot to succeed. So now can they do it? Can they execute it? This is they're giving the players all the tools.
Yeah.
Now it's up to them to put it together.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a consistency thing, because we've seen it a lot in camp, but then you get back to some of that grenade offense stuff where a protection breakdown here or a little bit of a miscommunication there. For example, the seam throw to Hunter Henry, like that throw is going to be available to this offense for the entire season.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry up the seam, Gesicki when he's fully back up the seam. Those throws are going to be available and open, I think, to this offense. But that one, whether he was protecting him from the safety, whether he thought he was going to fade versus, kind of cut it back inside, only Mac and Hunter Henry can answer that question. But the bottom line is that that's a throw they got to make, because that's an explosive in this offense that they're going to have to be able to hit. It can't all be 5-yard passes on option routes to Mario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne and whoever, or, slants to Kendrick Bourne or whatever. You got to push it down the field sometimes, and those are the ways that you're going to push it.
That's going to be their version of stretching the field.
I also think, similarly with Devontae Parker, that throw I thought that was a competitive throw. If we can, I don't want to get bogged down with people and arguing whether or not it was a good throw or not a good throw.
Have you seen the one guy on Twitter that anytime you tweet about that play, he posts like his screenshot, the picture of it?
Yeah. Great. Let's move on from screenshots.
Love evaluating plays off a single frame.
Bottom line, I thought that was a competitive throw that Parker probably should have had, and I actually think in the regular season he probably lays out for that pass and does make the catch, but maybe made a little bit of a decision there to not lay out for it in a preseason game. So like I said, I loved what they did. A lot of it was, like you said, they're starting from a much higher level, but so much of that was like Bill O'Brien day one install. Like that wasn't, we're not really even at the advanced beginner or advanced stages or the PhD stage yet. They're running concepts that are very, very like I said, basic stuff, day one install stuff for Bill O'Brien. So that's really encouraging. I do want to touch just briefly before we move on from the O'Brien effect and the X's and O's. The RPO stuff is going to be a really, really exciting thing for all of us, and me especially, because I've been banging the table for 3 years for them to have a sophisticated RPO package with Mac Jones. I really like what they're thinking up in that situation. And I think that it's going to evolve even past like just slants and stuff like that.
I would hope so.
It's going to get exciting. I believe there were a couple of them that could have been executed a little bit better. I thought the first one, they got kind of lucky. City So was probably 5 yards down the field. So they're going to have to work on the illegal man down the field thing. I personally think all teams that run them, like Philly and Kansas City, they push the envelope on that and they force the referees to make the call. So I think that's okay.
I think it's one of those calls that, like, because the rule's a yard. If you're a yard and a half, that generally doesn't get called. It's as long as you're not into the second level.
Right, yeah. He was pretty far down the field. The other thing I would say about it is, the timing, like the second one to Bourne, he got open at the line of scrimmage on the slant. Mac probably should have waited second window, but then you get into the things of the illegal man downfield. The longer the quarterback holds the ball, the further down the field the linemen are going to get. So RPOs are really designed for the ball to come out extremely quickly. Otherwise, you're going to get flagged every other RPO for illegal man down the field. But just to wrap it up on this, PFF tweeted out the other day that the Patriots have had an RPO rate of nearly 19% in the preseason, which is the third highest rate in the league. I believe the Eagles and the Chiefs were the 1 and 2 last year in RPO usage, and they're usually between 20 and 25%. That's roughly the amount of offense that they use. It's early down offense. It's a first down call. Every once in a while, I suppose it could be a third down call depending on the down and distance. But you're talking about 1/4 of the playbook. So as infatuated as I am with them, as excited as I get about RPOs, you do have to think in terms of the fact that they're 75 to 80% of the time they're running something else, right? So it's really just a snapshot of it. Quickly on the run game and that sort of thing, I think it's interesting what they're doing in the run game. They're one back, right? They're not going to be a fullback team. They're running a lot of duo and inside zone through the middle of the field. I like that. I think Ramondre Stevenson likes running that. I think he makes really good reads and cuts off of those inside runs. I do think it's going to be an interesting dynamic as we go along here. How well can they block it without a fullback? I think is going to be very, a big question mark, because they don't really have, unless they keep Sokol or Ferkser on the roster, and we'll get to that, they don't really have a difference-making blocker at tight end right now. And obviously we know where the offensive line stands, and it is difficult to block those runs without a lead blocker if you're not really good at the point of attack. So that's going to be another schematic thing that they're going to have to work through. You got anything else on that, or should we?
Yeah, well, I just think I'm actually not super worried about that, because I remember – so Ramondre's first year here was Josh McDaniels and Jakob Johnson was here. And then it was early last year, somebody asked him about what it was like not running behind a fullback. And they're like, you ran behind Jakob last year. And he said he never, in high school and college, he never ran behind a fullback. He was always in these spread sets, and he actually preferred it because...
Right, but I'm not worried about Ramondre preferring it. I'm worried about them actually being able to block it.
But I'm saying I think he's a guy that's adept to being able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that a fullback fixes a ton, because I think a lot of Ramondre's skill set is field vision and identifying the hole and going. And if he, I trust his ability, if the initial hole is clogged up, to adjust and go elsewhere, right? So, I mean, the offensive line's a concern overall, but I don't.
Yeah, we can get
fullback doesn't really change a lot for me in that regard.
Okay, so the other thing that I liked was elements of the game for Mac Jones. I think saying that Mac Jones was bad in that game is incorrect, and I think that saying that Mac Jones was great in that game is also incorrect. He was okay. He was fine. He did what he was supposed to do, and I think that's the most encouraging thing.
Yeah,
is that his eyes and his decision making were all in the right places. There was so many times last year where he would open with his eyes on the left side, and the open receiver would be right, and he just would never see the receiver. He would never get through the progression to make the read, or it was a rhythm throw, so he wasn't opening to the right direction. And usually it's two things. One, they read the safeties, obviously. That's where you start.
Yeah.
But sometimes, good quarterbacks will actually read the way that the defensive line is aligned, because most of the time the defensive coordinator is going to protect the defensive line in the run fit. So you're not going to necessarily rotate away from the 3 technique a lot, because then that's going to leave a big bubble to just run it down your throat if you do that.
Right.
So a lot of the times quarterbacks will also read the front in terms of how pre-snap, where is the defensive line shaded? Where's the line, where's the nose? Where's the 3 technique? That sort of thing, and make decisions based off of that. I thought that his eyes and his decision making and his poise were all really good in this game. Obviously the individual throws, you have, the Kendrick Bourne throw under pressure.
Yeah.
You have Demario Douglas on 3rd down. Those are good throws as well. But I more importantly than the actual results in the throws he was making, I was really encouraged by his overall poise, grasp of what they were doing, and again, his field vision in his eyes. It felt like there was a much better, I don't know, just sort of direction of where he was headed on every single play. Even though the results might not have been perfect every single time he dropped back, I thought that he was much sharper with his decision making and with his processing in this game.
If you go way back to when we did that show before camp, what are you looking for from each position? Yeah. My thing with Mac was, is he sped up?
Yeah.
How is he going to handle pressure? Because he's going to have to handle pressure this year with that offensive line. Yeah. And I thought he did a very good job with that. I thought the throw to Parker, I wish he hit it, because that's the play you look at and you say that's everything he didn't do last year. But you watch how he manipulated the pocket on that rep, right? Stepped up, moved around, got rid of the ball. There were a couple other times where I thought he was good at recognizing the pressure. Both sacks came just essentially unblocked rusher on the blind side. So, I thought he was good in that regard. He didn't look sped up. The other thing I thought he did last year, late in the year, and this is part of being sped up, he was going right to that check down. It was first read, not there, check down. Maybe that was the design. I don't know. But he wasn't going right to the running back, right? Yeah. Which you don't necessarily want him to look right to the running back unless that's the design. So for him to kind of explore some of that deeper stuff. Now, he has said, preseason, training camp, that's when you test things, and maybe this is him testing it, and he's not as worried, but I kind of want him to take some of that mentality into the regular season if that's the case. Yeah,
there was just so many instances last year where, that Demario Douglas play on 3rd down. Does that happen? Does he identify the coverage bust, know where he should be going
so
with
much
the ball?
Of that doesn't happen last year because they use motion on that play.
Yeah.
The way that, and it's a coverage bust, but why did the coverage bust there? Because the way Hunter Henry released his route opened it up for Demario Douglas.
Well, they also just rotated the back end the wrong way.
Right.
It was a total coverage bust.
No, but they still had 2-2. They still had 2-on-2 on
They
that side.
did, yeah. Their underneath zone distribution. It doesn't matter. Their underneath zone distribution was busted.
I feel like the way Hunter Henry ran the route there in some way drew there were 2 guys there, and they essentially had a read. I'm going to take one. I'm going to take the other, and they both took Hunter Henry. You can call that a bust, and that is a bust, but it's a bust because we're going to put 2 guys in the same spot.
There
and
was some
them.
conflict there.
Yeah. So. And then like you said, the Mac part of it too. It's funny you just brought that up because that whole play, I loved that whole play because there were so many things there that we didn't see last season.
Yeah, so that's a cool play. That's one of my favorite Bill O'Brien plays that they run. So basically, they had we actually talked about this on the Sports Hub, I think, the other night. They have an option route at both levels. So they have Demario Douglas is running a 6-yard option, and Hunter Henry is running a 12-yard option. And basically, all they're going to do is run in that stack, and Hunter Henry is going to release off the line of scrimmage, and his vertical release is going to create a little bit of airspace for Demario Douglas to just go to work. And if it's man coverage, he can juke his man in or out. If it's zone coverage, he's going to sit it down, and ended up being zone, so that's why he ends up sitting down the route. Those are the types of plays that I always really like with O'Brien. I think the other one that I really like just from a schematic design perspective was actually a miss. It was the Hunter Henry throw up the seam. That's a play where you have a zone beater on one side and you have a man beater on the other. And that's good design of offense. And when Mac read man coverage, he worked the right side of the formation. But if he had read zone, then he probably would have worked the X-follow side of the formation on the left-hand side. That's the way that you can give the quarterback answers to the test. Is you got zone beaters,
right.
You got man beaters, everything is going to work against everything, and you're going to figure it out post-snap, and you can make the right decision with the football.
And you just have to, and that's Bill O'Brien's offense to a T, but then, you have to figure out what it is, and that's where I say they're putting it in on Mac and on the players. The opportunities are going to be there. He's just got to go back and make that read and figure out what it is, and he did that in that instance, and you hope he can continue to do it.
All right, one more what I liked about this game, and then we'll move over to some of the things I didn't like as much. Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was flat out awesome in this game. Like, there was just a lot of great things that he did. The blocking,
it's almost like he's a good player.
Both in the run game and he made some good blocks to try to get guys after the catch, too. And
he set that big block on the Ramondre run, too.
Yeah,
right?
Point of attack on the Ramondre run was the highlight for him.
Yeah.
Just clocked the I think it was a safety, and just walked them right out of the gap. I mean, just a great block. And those are the types of blocks that we've talked about before, how the Patriots view Kendrick Bourne as like a passing down player, as a third down player, passing situation player. I think it's 80% of his snaps with the Patriots have been a pass in Kendrick Bourne's career with the Patriots. I think that's right. If he blocks like that more.
Is it career or is that last year?
No, since they got him under McDaniels too. So if he blocks like that, then he's going to have more opportunity on first down, which is what you want to see. His route running in this game, I thought his route running against Jair Alexander in practice last week, for what it's worth, was also fantastic. He ran a great route in the red zone that I think actually ended up getting on Twitter. If people want to look that one up against Jair, that was a great route. But his route running on those slants, I mean, he's really separating at the line of scrimmage. He ran a great route on that in cut and then made the catch. Went above and made the catch on that third down play. He was open the entire game. Like, he was open on every single route that he ran. He blocked extremely well. I'm getting to the point now, based off of just what we've seen, and I think the one thing I'll say with Juju is I am waiting for the regular season to come around, because he's a veteran and he might just be one of those guys that just flips the switch when the games start to count.
Yeah.
I could see that. But we're getting to the point now where I think we really seriously need to consider Kendrick Bourne as their number 2 receiver. And number 1 maybe even in targets, but when I say number 2, I mean Devontae Parker is going to be your X. And I think Kendrick Bourne being the top Z receiver is in play.
I mean, I was trying to tell you this, whatever it was, 3-4 months. Do you remember this? I was trying to tell you this 3-4 months ago. He's reaching for the mouse. He wants to take calls. He doesn't want to answer for this. Kendrick Bourne makes plays.
He does.
Kendrick Bourne, when you put the ball in Kendrick Bourne's hands, good things happen.
To be fair, I think Kendrick Bourne looks the best I've ever seen him right now. Like, I think this version of Kendrick Bourne so far is better than even the 2021 version.
I would say so as well, but it's I think in theory he could have made this jump last year if given the opportunity, and he was never given, because we said that last year. All right, first year in the system, and he acknowledged at times in 2021 that the playbook was tough for him to pick up, and I get that it's a tough playbook.
Yeah.
But he acknowledged that at times. So going into last season, this was a big conversation. Hey, this guy, he was on 1,000-yard pace for most of the season, kind of fell off late because he got COVID, but 1,000-yard pace for most of the season, 90-yard catch for most of the season. If they fully incorporate him, he's going to take off. And then he got benched essentially in training camp and never recovered.
Yeah.
So, this is the jump I was waiting for last year. I always felt he was capable of doing this. He just needed to be given the chance. And it really looks like right now they're going to give him the chance. I saw Fox Sports had like a most tradable player on each team list the other day, and they had Kendrick Bourne on there.
Absolutely ridiculous list.
So I didn't look at any of the other teams.
He's the best receiver on the team.
They cannot. I know there's a couple of people that still are kind of, with Kayshon Boutte and DeMario Douglas taking off. Oh, do we revisit that? Because there were rumors last year they were talking about trading Bourne.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. First of all, the most tradable player on the team is Nick Folk. He is. Am I wrong?
No, but Kendrick Bourne is the best receiver on the team.
Kendrick Bourne, I'm so happy to hear you say that.
But I had to see it first. Like you
saw it in 2021.
No, I didn't.
I saw it.
No,
I saw it in 2021.
In 2021,
I saw it coming.
He's catching a shallow drag against the Titans, and then they're playing like
1,000-yard pace for 10 games.
He's
Evan.
wearing like an invisibility cloak as he runs down the sidelines, like Chris Hogan.
In invisibility cloak, I know which player you're talking about. He makes 3 guys miss on that play.
He didn't make 3 guys miss.
He made 3 guys miss. We can pull the play up. He makes 3 guys miss on that play. No, I think Kendrick Bourne can be a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL. I believe that in the right circumstance. From what we've seen,
I don't know about 1,000. I don't know if he'll get that target share, but I'm starting to believe that he's the best receiver on the team. Let me put you that way.
He leads.
Is that nice enough for you?
Yes or no? Yes or no? No. I've got how I want to put it. Yes or no on this. He will lead the team this year in either just one. Doesn't have to be all of them. Just one.
Yeah.
Catches, yards, touchdowns. He will lead the team in a major receiving stat this year. Yes or no?
I'll say yes. I think he'll probably lead the team in yards. I think just in terms of, I don't know if he
catches, probably not, because he's not a volume guy.
He's not a volume guy, but I think if you ask me, and this is my whole take on this whole thing now, I think he needs to be a volume guy. I think he should be a volume guy.
Wow, you've come all the way around. I love this.
He's just had the best summer.
I'm with you.
And he looks stronger. He looks more explosive. He looks focused. Like I just see a different player. I really do. And I when I say a different player, I mean I agree with you. I think your take about this was probably the jump he should have taken last year, but he didn't because of the situation. I think that's spot on, and we're really seeing that this year. It's very rare, and I think this is where my hesitation was with Kendrick Bourne, then I want to move on. It's very rare that a receiver, 6-7 years into his NFL career, all of a sudden blossoms into this like Pro Bowl caliber receiver. Usually by this point, you kind of know who guys are. You don't really see that too often. We talk a lot about the year 2 leap and things like that, or in this case, maybe a lot of the 2021 class is going to have a year 3 leap just because of how horrible everything was last year. But in general, 7 years into your NFL career, becoming all of a sudden going from a career like 600-yard guy to 1,000 is pretty rare.
Well, can I give you a couple? I mean, they're not apples to apples. They happen to both be on defense. But first of all, Dietrich Wise had the
year
rarely
6
talked about year 6 leap last year. I honestly, a guy I think, and it's another guy I like, so maybe I'm a little biased here, but
shocker.
How about Jabril Peppers? Jabril Peppers was misused badly in Cleveland, went to New York and figured it out.
Well, let's put that on the I have that on my list.
Okay, but I would just say Kendrick Bourne kind of buried in San Francisco, comes here, sort of breaks out before he got sick in 2021, and then last year never had a chance because of circumstances outside of his control. So it's year 6 for Bourne, but it's also it's not like he was out there playing poorly.
Yeah.
There were reasons outside of his control that he maybe wasn't able to produce up to his potential. This year, they should give him every chance in the world to do that. And I hope they do. I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for him because when he gets going, too, we didn't even talk about, his I think him and Mac have the best chemistry.
Yeah.
Of all the pass catchers, it's his Max. He's Mac's guy. And I think just the energy he brings, I've always said, just the way he approaches the game, Kendrick Bourne can play for my team any day. I'll find a role for him. When he gets going and then he becomes like a leader, he becomes a voice, that's a guy I want to be a voice. So I really hope that he keeps this momentum going into the regular season.
Feed KB. I really feel like that's the biggest thing. All right, we're going to be negative now for a second. All right, don't freak out. Everybody.
Are we talking about the offensive line?
We're going to a little bit.
I think most people would agree with this.
So
I don't think people would fault us for being negative about this.
My attempt at a backwards. I guess it's kind of a compliment sandwich. I don't know. Here's the things I don't like.
Okay. Well, it's not a compliment sandwich then.
Number one, I did not for Mac.
Yeah.
The one nitpick on this film I thought for Mac Jones, I didn't love the City South sack. Didn't love it. So City South gets long arm bull rush by Kingsley Enagbari, gets put on skates and walked back into the quarterback. not Mac's fault. Right, like you're not Mac's fault that he's in a preseason game with a rookie right tackle who played guard in college and is now trying to transition to tackle.
I mean, he got put on skates.
Totally not his fault. That sack, because you time punts, hang times, I time sacks. That sack was 3.75 seconds.
So what was it like a deep route combination? Or?
No, so he was looking at Hunter Henry at the sticks.
Okay,
he had Hunter Henry on like a little sit route. And there was 3 guys in the triangle. Just Hunter Henry was in the middle of a 3-guy triangle, and he had 2 options on the play. I felt like one was throw it with some steam and throw it low to Hunter Henry and try to sneak it in the window.
Yeah.
Or the other thing was, and this is I think where the concerns just in general come from Mac Jones in the ceiling at the quarterback position, get out of the pocket. Right, like because he had time,
what was left of the pocket.
He had time to make a decision.
Yeah,
is my point of either trying to extend the play by getting out of the pocket, and then maybe you make the Hunter Henry throw then once you get yourself some more time, or to just grip it and rip it and try to hit it into the tight window to Henry. I think what ended up happening was that was getting bullied so badly that Enagbari was in his face. So he couldn't see to the other side of the line of scrimmage of who was open and who wasn't. Kendrick Bourne again was wide open on the right sideline, but
it's open.
But it's difficult to make that throw. Those are the one play where a more mobile quarterback and somebody that has a little bit more of that second reaction gameplay instincts, I think gets out of the pocket on that play and tries to save it somehow. 3.75 seconds, I need a decision by the quarterback.
That's fair. No, that's a fair nitpick.
So that was my one nitpick of Mac. I don't want to go like too long on that because it wasn't egregious.
It's one play. He didn't have a perfect game. We're neither of us are saying he had a perfect game.
Right. The other thing I would say, so on the strip sack, it's Haas juke. I think he's looking to Juju on the juke route, and he's either looking at Juju on the juke route and then was trying to get to number 2, which was a wide open Kendrick Bourne, shocker.
Right.
Or he was trying to manipulate the coverage by looking off the help defender to then work it to Kendrick Bourne, who is wide open, shocker. I don't know which one it was, but either way, I felt like he was a little loose with the ball in the pocket. Like, that's probably a play that you wouldn't ideally like to end in the strip sack, especially because they were in scoring territory, so that you got to come away with 3 points there. Now, with that being said, I time sacks. 2.7 seconds for Andrew Stuber to get dusted by Enagbari on that. Not long enough. Not long enough to come off the first read and get to the second read of the progression. If it's a quick game throw, if it's a rhythm throw, those usually come out in around 2.5 to 2.75. But if you're making a full field progression read, there's no way you're doing that in 2.7
And that's
seconds.
a blindside one, too. Like, he can't see that coming. Somebody's got to communicate that.
So that's how I felt about bowl sacks. I don't really put the strip sack totally on Mac. I think that one is a really difficult play to put on him. The sow sack, I thought that he probably could have either gotten the ball out or tried to scramble to extend the play a little bit and move out of the pocket and make something happen there. The other thing I did not like about this game, well, just the offensive line as a whole.
Yeah.
But I thought that some of the PFF metrics, not to pick on my guys at PFF because I love them, but you're going to go and look those things up and see that Mac Jones only under pressure on 33% of his dropbacks.
That feels low.
Very low.
That feels
so
low.
What was happening in a lot of this film to me was guys were losing or about to lose blocks, and the ball was either coming out or they lost a block in the run game, but the ball went the other way, like things like that. But what you can tell when you watch the end zone angle is when guys are struggling and are falling off their block or losing the block in pass protection and just get lucky kind of that the ball comes out. And I thought there was a lot of that going on. Specifically, So was rough in this game. He was better in the first game. This one was tough.
But I would too, just at the same time. That's good for Mac. That's a good sign for Mac in the passing game because that's how the offense is designed. Is that you're getting the ball out before these guys can fall off their blocks.
Well, that's sort of my point. Is that we talk a lot about on the show. People ask us all the time, Alex, like, how do they work around this? How do they get around the fact that their offensive line might be a deficiency? We've talked about scheme ways to, passes at the line of scrimmage, just, quick game, RPO, screen, like all that kind of stuff. And the other thing is that the quarterback's got to be his best pass protector.
Yep.
And this is a positive. We talked about it. I thought Mac did a good job of that for the most part. I mentioned the one sack where I felt like he could have gotten the ball or made a play to get the ball out instead of taking the sack. But in general, I thought that he was solid in that regard. But that's really where we're headed with this offensive line. And I think the one positive thing, we did see Mike Onwenu out at practice yesterday. I cannot overstate how huge that is, that Onwenu's practicing. I think that tells me, I know how you feel about this, that they feel like he's on track for week 1.
Yeah, if not week 1, like 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
Just early in the season. But yeah, I feel better about him for week 1 than I do for Cole Strange at this point.
Yeah.
I would say on that, so now we get into that conversation of where's he going to play, because the one bright spot, I was not impressed with the offensive line at all in that game. But Riley Reif held up at right guard, I thought, pretty well.
He was okay. Yeah. I thought he treaded water. He hasn't played right guard a lot in a game and probably ever. I mean,
at least since like college.
I went back through his entire PFF like snaps by position. I couldn't find a guard snap.
Did you do college too?
No, I didn't go that far back. Okay. I don't know if they have college that far back.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, he's been in the league for a long time. The one thing I would say about it again is if you need to start having that conversation about Mike Onwenu at right tackle.
Yeah.
You really do, because
I don't think they're serious about that.
And that's a shame. That's a shame.
I mean, based on,
although, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
They are so big on continuity.
Yeah.
And Riley Reif continues to rep at right guard. Could that be a sign that
it's come? That's the one reason why I feel like that it could happen.
Right. If they're going to move him back out to right tackle, him being Reif.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just have him rep? And maybe it's they want City So to get the reps, and it's that simple. But for a team that's so big on continuity in the offensive line, I feel like you would be all right. It's a 1-for-1 swap once this guy gets back, rather than taking this guy in, this guy out, moving this guy over.
That's what I'm holding out hope on.
It's kind of same for me.
They're training that offensive line to basically be Trent, Strange, Andrews, Reif. Obviously, Strange isn't out there either, but they're putting Trent, Andrews, and Reif in the spots that they're going to be in week 1.
Yeah,
and then hopefully you get the two Strange and Onwenu back. We got Onwenu back already, but hopefully Strange comes back as well, and then you just put them into their spots for Mafi and So. Like that's what Dante Scarnecchia would do.
Right.
Scarnecchia would not have Reif repping in practice at right guard, knowing in the back of his mind that he was going to be playing right tackle once the season came around. That wouldn't make any sense from his point of view, because he's so big, like you just mentioned, on the continuity and seeing it through the same set of eyes and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to speak for Scar. I'm not Scar, but I have to imagine that based off of all of the philosophies that he's ever told us when we've had him available to the media and things like that, that would not make any sense in the Scar rulebook. And
you have a guy in Adrian Clem and Bill O'Brien. Adrian Clem played for Scar, and Bill O'Brien coached under Scar. So, and we know that they'll talk. We know they still talk to him.
Yeah.
So maybe I think you can't throw out a core philosophy of Dante Scarnecchia's when looking at it like that. So that's why. You're right. I probably have my hopes up too much, but I'm still holding out hope that week 1, Mike Onwenu's in there at right tackle.
Me too.
Because City So's not ready, and he's maybe in a year or two they turn him into a right tackle, an NFL right tackle, but he's not ready to play right tackle. Right now.
His pad level and his footwork are both bad.
It's the footwork for me. It's I go back to that sack where his feet are just flailing under him as he's getting pushed back. And when you talk about this all the time, the big, if you want to play tackling, you're a big guy. And he's 6'5", 330, 340. Sit down in the chair, right?
Yeah.
It's go there, get back, and basically make him run through you. And he just doesn't have that ability to anchor yet with his feet.
Yeah, to me, I agree with you, and I think it's really a pad level thing. It's knee and hip flexibility to be able to sit down in that chair, and I don't know if he necessarily is flexible enough to have that technique, like to be able to actually do that, consistently. I thought across the board that pad level was a little bit of an issue in this game for the starting offensive line. Trent Brown's always going to play up tall, because he's 6'8", so he's always going to be a little bit taller than the other guys. But in general, I thought that was a little bit of a concern. I'm not as concerned now that I've seen Big Mike out there at practice and off PUP.
It's a big help.
Yeah, it definitely eases a lot of stress about it, but it still remains a question mark. All right,
there's no chance he plays tomorrow, right?
No, he hasn't. He barely
had
practice, but I do think that we will see him week 1. I think he's going to be ready to go because they have 2 full weeks of practice after this. Remember, to get him ready. All right, last thing I did not like, and then we'll take some of the calls and move on to the roster stuff. Last thing I did not like was just in general, the overall compete and just execution by the defensive front 7 in this game was bad. Wasn't good. It was just bad. I really appreciated Devon Godshaw yesterday. I asked him a few questions about it. I said, "What did you see on the Packers film?" And he said, "A whole lot of getting better to do." So
all right, good. So
he was honest about it. So I feel comfortable telling them that they were bad because I think they recognize it just as much as all of us did. I think the biggest things were Godshaw. I think Bentley is such a big piece of it for Godshaw, and Godshaw is a big piece of it for Bentley, right? Like I think those two guys are really in lockstep in how they defend the run. But I thought in general the ability to get off blocks and defeat blocks one-on-one in this game was bad. And then the linebacker level was a mess. Mack Wilson was not good. Jelani Tavai, I know he's dealing with a lot of things off the field with Hawaii and things like that, but he also not his best game either. But Mack Wilson, is he going to make this team as we kind of go to our roster side of things? I don't know.
Yeah, I had him as one of my my last cuts. Just on the defensive line real quick.
Yeah.
It would have helped if they had Juwan Bentley, but you saw Devon Godshaw just getting moved in the run game. You saw Carl Davis getting moved.
So he's playing the nose, and he's getting those combo blocks. And normally Bentley is coming downhill, and he's occupying one of those blockers, right? Usually the guard. So that gets the guard off of Godshaw, and that allows Godshaw to now have a one-on-one.
Okay.
So that's how it kind of fits together.
Look,
if Mack Wilson's going to play that Mike spot, and he's not going to come downhill and press the guard off of Godshaw, then Godshaw is going to get pushed 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. That's just what it's going to look like.
But look, I mean, I think they recognize that they maybe need more run defense because they tried to sign Marquand McCall. Yeah. Obviously, that didn't work out. But that's going to be my biggest thing to watch Friday night, and it's another good test of a good running team in the Titans and Derrick Henry. How do they look defending the run? Because they were a good run defending team last year. It wasn't an issue, and they brought everybody back.
They were a good traditional run defense last year. Like if you had a mobile quarterback,
right? No, but they were getting beat on traditional runs against the Packers. Is what I'm saying. So I want to see. I'm not sitting here saying it's time to raise the alarms about the run defense or anything in terms of the season, but put that to bed. You had bad tape last week. Put it to bed.
I would also say that it wasn't just the run defense. Like the pass rush was really vanilla. They blitzed a couple times from the second level.
Yeah, that I think is more of a preseason thing, though.
So, but they couldn't get they didn't win one-on-one either. Judon, Wise, Barmore, even Uche.
But
Uche had a couple, but it wasn't his normal performance either.
But did you also see them using moves?
No, and so this is
which is what again I'm saying preseason.
So this is my next thing that I don't like. About this. We can chalk it up to preseason, but as we do in this industry, we find things to be concerned about. We can chalk it up to being preseason, and I fully agree that the blitzes, like everybody says, they blitzed a lot in this game. They had a lot of 5-man rushes in this game. They added a linebacker from the second level to try to present some one-on-ones to their top guys, but they weren't running zero blitzes. They weren't running amoebas. They weren't running any of their exotic stuff. This was really basic blitz. Like, we're going to blitz the linebacker up the middle, and a guard or a running back is going to take him, and that's going to create one-on-ones in other places. That was it. It wasn't really anything too schematically heavy. They did basically no line games in this, which is very rare for them. No stunts, no twists, no picks up front. That's very rare. That's their defense. That's their rush. So on the one hand, I think you can be concerned about the fact that are guys going to win one-on-one against good offensive lines? Because the Packers do have a good offensive line, even though Bakhtiari wasn't out there. The rest of those guys are pretty good. The other concern I have about it is that the plan against the Eagles.
No, I don't think so.
Because the Eagles, we've seen the mush rush before. And if you had to ask me, like, if you thought that this was actually them executing what they were being told to do, what would you describe it as? The mush rush is the only thing I can think of. Like that, and you add on that fifth rusher because it covers all the gaps, right? So now you're not letting the quarterback out of the pocket. So I just, that's my concern. I hope that this is not a precursor to, this wasn't a game film where they were like, let's get ready for Philadelphia.
I really don't think that's what this was.
I hope not.
I think
because the Eagles will score 45 on them if they play that way.
Yeah, I think it was a preseason thing. I think that's all it was. I think they're doing the prep on the backfields here.
Okay, so let's
Can I give you one more take from the game?
Yes.
I'm very excited for Jalen Mills this year.
Yeah.
He's back. When they signed him, I remember and Kyle Duggar hadn't taken off yet. He'd only been here for a year. When they signed him, I remember we were all like, oh, this is Patrick Chung's replacement. This guy's going to play in the box, and he's going to be able to do a lot of different things for you defensively. And then they put him at corner. And he's done both, but I always thought in Philly he was better as this kind of rover safety.
Yep.
And you see it. He has the size and the athleticism to cover tight ends.
Great instincts.
He's not afraid to play physically in the run game, which you don't always see. I shouldn't say often. You don't always see from defensive backs. He's just so much better when he's coming to the play rather than the play coming to him. And it's another wrinkle. It's another layer for the defense. But you could say he's been their best defensive player through 2 preseason games. I really feel that way.
I would agree. I think he's been really good. So maybe I oversold the defensive front seven concern. I'm not that concerned about the defensive front seven either.
I'm not concerned long term, but they didn't play well.
Yeah, this was a bad game. The one thing that
I'm saying, like, go out Friday night and prove that it was a one-off.
The one thing that I think is legitimate that might be something that we need to continue to monitor is the Devin McCourty situation. I like how Mills has played, but Mills has played that at a high level, more closer to the line of scrimmage, I would say, whether it's man coverage against the tight ends, whether it's robber roles, like at the intermediate level, like he's done a really nice job of that. The deep safety spot is still something that I don't think that they have a natural guy at right now. They played a lot of Peppers and Phillips in the split safety role. And I think that actually did also kind of have a trickle down effect to the run defense, because those are two of your better out of the safety group. I think that those are two of your better run defenders in that group. Peppers, obviously, because of his physicality, and I think Phillips is just a heady player in the box that can make up for his size. I didn't love what I saw out of the deep safety reps for those guys. Adrian Phillips on the touchdown to Jaden Reed got completely put in a blender. He had really lost at the top of the defense there. I don't know who's going to play that spot. They don't really have a natural flip and run guy to play that spot. And I think all of them are still trying to learn the reads and reading out route combinations and where should they help and where should they not and things like that. That's still a work in progress there on the back end. And I know that I don't think anybody really thought differently. I think some quiet minority, but they're going to miss Devin McCourty a lot.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody's misconstruing that. Real quick, some breaking news, and I got to ask you if I'm missing something here.
Yeah.
The Giants, or the Cardinals traded Isaiah Simmons to the Giants. What do you think Isaiah Simmons is worth?
I don't know. He's been a bust.
Yeah, but a 7th-round pick?
He's been bad.
Has he been that bad?
Yeah, they've moved him to like 3 different positions.
Because he plays all those positions.
No, but like he's just been, they don't have a home for him. He's just been bad. They've tried him at linebacker, they've tried him at safety, they tried him at like slot corner. Yeah, he's been a bust.
I didn't think he'd been that bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to some of these calls. Todd in North Carolina, if you're still there, thanks for hanging on, Todd.
Hey guys, I like what you're saying, and basically what you're saying seems to echo what I felt from the, of course I'm a fan and I watch whatever I can, but it's the only thing that's got me really nervous about this team is the play of the 2 lines. And I know you talked a little bit about this already, Evan, because I asked this question, but I want to hear what the what is the Catch-22 opinion, not the the PFW in progress opinion or whatever it is, the PU now. And, that's a shot at Matt because he answered the phone wrong. But that's okay. So I want to hear what you guys think of the line, so on both sides, and just tell me what your feeling is with respect to how that play is going to be. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Great
Todd.
show.
Thanks for the call, and don't throw Marine under the bus like that. He did just fine.
The old Patriots Catch-22.
Yeah, people still call it PFW in progress. Like I was a kid when it was PFW in progress, so I don't even know that name. I don't even know what that is. It's unfiltered. Anyways, I'm not concerned about the defensive line all that much. I know I just went on a rant about how they played terribly in this game, but they got veteran guys up there. I think, honestly, I think a lot of those guys were like, this is a preseason game, and I'm not sure how much I really care about any of this. I fully expect them to wake up, and they have too many good players on the defensive line to be overly concerned about it. I think all those guys are good players. Barmore, Wise, Godshaw, obviously once Keon White is out there at full go, I think he's going to be a good player as well. So I'm not really concerned about the defensive line. Offensively, we've been concerned about the offensive line for 6 months. Like this is like this isn't a new take. Like we've been concerned about it since the end of last season.
The last 3 years, our number one need for them in the draft has been tackle.
Right. So the question with the offensive line, the bottom line to me is, are they going to have to cover up one spot or multiple spots? Because if all they have to do is cover up right tackle, I think that can really be figured out. It's one spot. You slide protection that way, chip the tight end or the back, quick game concepts to the other side. Like there's so many ways to fix one spot. If we get into the season and right tackle's an issue, let's say Cole Strange is hurt or isn't out there or doesn't make the year 2 leap and is riding the roller coaster like he did last year as a rookie, like those are the times. Or Trent Brown is Trent, which version of Trent Brown are they getting? Those are the times where if you have multiple leaks, now we're in trouble. But if you have one leak, I think you'll be okay, and that's why I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic that it's going to be fine. I'm not saying it's going to be a difference-making offensive line. They're going to be this great San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles level unit, but I think that they can get away with it if it's just right tackle. That's a little bit of a deficiency, or guard, whatever spot Reef, no offense, is playing.
I think it's a glass half full, glass half empty thing. What you just said is true if they have all their starters.
Yeah.
This is the NFL. Guys get hurt.
Right.
And when you criticize the offensive line right now, there are a lot of people that will say, oh, it's just backups. They'll be fine. Yeah, but it is the backups. So they're not starting, but they're also not that far away from playing. And
okay, let me ask you this, though. If So isn't in this equation and the backup that's playing is Mafi, because I think Mafi's been okay.
Yeah.
I think I feel better about that.
Okay.
And
I would agree.
We're both in agreement, too, that we would much rather there be an issue at guard than tackle.
Yes.
So
correct.
If Mafi is just a replacement level guard as a rookie, I think that they can get away with that, whereas So I think is a true liability.
I'm more thinking, what if something happens to Trent Brown?
Yeah.
Because who's the back? Is the backup left tackle Stuber? Is it Reef?
Connor
is it
McDermott?
So? Is it Connor McDermott, who hasn't been on the field in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You'd like to hope Calvin Anderson comes back, but if he's on NFI, they lose him for at least the first 6 weeks, and then he's got to ramp up.
Right.
Even if they go down at guard, like, all right, if they go down one player that's Mafi, what happens if they go down 2? Or what happens if Mike Onwenu is at right tackle?
Yeah.
So then, all right, so Strange is still hurt, so that's Mafi at one spot, but then who's your other guard
Reef.
now? I guess would be Reef. Okay, that's fair. But still, they're like it's a little bit of a Jenga tower.
It's a house of cards.
It's a little bit of a house of cards right
100%. And I think that the biggest thing about the house of cards, like obviously, I guess the second biggest thing, the first biggest thing is everybody's got to be healthy. That's number one.
Yes.
Number two.
But like that's not, and I don't want this to come across as me rooting for injuries, because I'm absolutely not doing that. I'm just acknowledging the reality of the game.
Yeah.
They're not going to be fully healthy for 17 games.
How big is Trent Brown for this entire team this year?
Top 3 most important player on the team.
Yeah, like it's like, to me, it's Mac Jones is obviously your most important player.
Yeah.
And then I think Trent might be number 2.
Might even be Trent over Mac.
No.
Well, all right, let me
the way Zappy's looked this
Okay,
summer.
that's fair. Zappy's had a bad summer, but I was going to say, like, just yeah, because Zappy's summer kind of kills this argument.
Yeah.
But, like, the gap between Trent and, let's say, Andrew Stuber, and the gap between Mack and Zappy, the gap between Trent and Stuber is much bigger.
Yeah, I really feel like Trent is the tipping point for the entire offense. If Trent is 2018 Trent Brown, then they're going to be a really good offense. I fully believe that. If Trent Brown is the guy that we saw last year, and I know he played every game.
He was fine last year. He was fine.
Dude, he how many penalties he had last year?
So he wasn't that high up on the list.
Of penalties?
Yeah.
He has to be. Among left tackles.
Let me pull it. I know this.
The false starts alone put him in the top
Isaiah
10.
Wynn, even after he'd been out for 3 weeks, was still the most penalized player in
Isaiah
football.
Wynn was bad. We know that. But I just feel like they need a locked-in Trent Brown. We all know that. But that cannot be overstated how important that guy is.
No, Trent Brown is, if he's not one, he's two. Most important player on the team.
All right, let's take Eddie from California. What's up, Eddie?
What's up, guys? Hope you guys are having a great day. Barth, I'm looking forward to having you on Unfiltered if you're still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still playing. They haven't told me otherwise, so.
All right. I'm on board with you about KB being able to be a 1,000-yard receiver.
Let's go.
I've always had high hopes for him. It just sucks, how his past 2 seasons have been with us, but I hope this is his breakout year for us. What more do the 2 rookies have to do, and who has to flop on the wide receiver core to get those 2 rookies more playing time in the regular season?
Good question, Eddie. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. That's a good segue, too, because I wanted to get into the roster stuff that we wanted to talk about. So,
by the way, Trent Brown was the 5th most penalized offensive lineman last year, so my bad.
Yeah, very high up.
But he's behind Tyron Smith.
He had 8 false start penalties or something crazy like that.
He had 6 offensive holdings, 5 false starts, a tripping, and an ineligible downfield. But the guys ahead of him, Tyron Smith.
Okay, but to be fair to him, the tripping call was just him being tall.
Oh, that was a bad call. I remember
that. Yeah.
The guys are ahead of him. Tyron Smith's a pretty good player. Had 10 holdings last year.
Yeah.
Landon Dickerson's a pretty good player.
Yep.
Donovan Smith had a down year.
Yeah.
And Ike Mekwonu, who was a rookie.
Yeah. Quanu might be a bust, too. He's had a rough camp in Carolina. Anyways, we're not the Carolina Panthers podcast.
Also, when you go by penalties that were actually accepted, 3, 4, 5, 6, Brown is 8th. 9th.
I only care about the ones
That's
that are
fair.
All of them.
I
care about all of them.
I'm just trying to help my argument.
All right, so wide receiver. You mentioned, the young guys and how do they get playing time, things like that. I think that it's becoming such a popular take for the Patriots to keep 6 wide receivers that now I am concerned that they're not going to do it. But I have them with 6 wide receivers right now. I'm going to post my final roster projection this weekend after the game tomorrow night. I have 2 reasons to have them with 6. One, I just think that Douglas and Booty have shown enough to make the team.
Yeah.
And I think that
more than enough.
Booty was really the Douglas made the team 2 weeks into training camp. That it was obvious that he was an NFL player and he was worth keeping. Booty, I felt like really needed to make it impossible for them to cut him. Right, like he had to come out and have just a incredible camp and preseason and make it impossible. I still don't necessarily think that he separates down the field all that much, but as like a possession receiver that can catch and run with the football, and in a lot of ways he's kind of similar to Kendrick Bourne, right? Like I think that those guys have similar games. I think Juju has a little bit of a similar game to him as well. So I have him with 6 wide receivers at the moment. I do think that there's a world where they carry 6 initially and then Tyquan goes on injured reserve to make it technically 5, but it was 6 to begin with. That's all the minutia. To the question of, first of all, I'm assuming you have 6.
I do have.
Right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
So we're both with 6. I feel like that's the right thing to do for them. The other reason why I like 6, so not only just because I think Douglas and Booty have shown that they probably should keep 6. The other reason, you're getting talked about.
Yes. I just got a text that this was coming.
You got a lower third and everything with your name on. Sorry, this is totally, no one has any clue what we're talking about right now. Barth is being talked about for his.
I think the hub
fandom.
is calling me right now.
Oh, well, too bad.
Yeah.
We're monopolizing his time right now. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
A little crossover.
Yeah. Anyways, so the other reason why I have them with 6, as you ignore your phone over there because you're on this show right now, not that show. The other reason is because you do have to start looking a little bit into the future. And the future right now at wide receiver is Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster are under contract, and then you also have Tyquan, which...
Oh, come on.
Oh, no.
Barth doesn't want to be in the pit for the boss. Barth is too short. Height is not an issue for McCarthy. It's technically true, but come on, man.
Yes.
Mean.
Hey, nothing wrong with being short kings. That's also, objectively, that's a pretty good photo of you, too. Like,
is it? I hate that picture.
Oh, no, they could have used a much worse picture than that. Come on. We both know that they could have used a worse picture than that. After this year, they have Kendrick Bourne is a free agent. So they have Devontae Parker, Juju, and Tyquan under contract, besides the rookies. I think you got to think about it from a long-term point of view as well, a 2024 point of view and beyond. If Kendrick Bourne ends up pricing himself out of New England, if Juju ends up not being very good, which we haven't really seen a ton out of Juju, I think those things add up to keeping those guys around. Are you focused on this right now, or are you lost in your appearance on that?
No, sorry. He's saying that I have a lack of height and a bad back. Half of that is true.
The lack of height is definitely true. I didn't know about the back part.
I don't know where that's coming from.
I don't know. I think they're just making fun of you.
Yeah, probably. Great.
It's good airtime for you, though.
Yeah. Sorry, what were we talking about?
So beyond this year, they don't have a ton of confirmed assets at wide receiver, which I think makes it worth it to keep Booty and Douglas around, even just as a developmental.
This is not a team that can afford to quit on wide receiver talent.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like, they can't.
Yeah.
They can't do it. So even if you think, all right, Booty's a year away, you're going to need him next year. And if they let him go and he goes somewhere else and he's producing, they just can't afford that. Yeah. So they have to keep 6. Now, if Thornton's really hurt, you keep 6, and then you IR Thornton right away, right? Yeah. And then that's how you get the third tight end or another linebacker, corner, or whatever.
First of all, before we move on, because this is very distracting.
Yes.
You and McCarthy are deciding to go to bowl shows. I thought that you had a reason to go to bowl shows.
Because I want to go.
To bowl shows.
Yeah.
What else am I doing? Isn't it the same show?
No, he does different set lists every night.
Okay. All right. I guess I can.
I mean, he'll do there'll be some songs that are the same.
He's going to play Born to Run at bowl shows.
He'll play Born to Run at bowl shows, but I'd say about half the set list changes, about half the songs change.
But he doesn't play Born in the USA, right? That's what you told me.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely in the US. He'll play it internationally.
All right.
Barth might get some deep cuts tonight. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Finally, they're moving on from talking about him so he can focus on the show that he's live on the air doing right now.
Sorry.
Second thing, they wanted. So we're both at 6 receivers.
Yeah.
We both like them keeping Booty and Douglas. To answer Eddie's question, I think we both feel the same way about Pop Douglas's role and how he can get on the field as a rookie. He's the shiftiest, gadgetiest slot receiver that they have. He's got a little bit of that Edelman in him, but he's also got a little bit of speed. He has a projected role because the rest of their guys, Bourne, Parker, Juju, are longer striders, bigger guys, physical guys that win at the catch point. Douglas is a jitterbug. So you can see how his style is complementary to the other 3 that are going to play.
He gives them something they don't have.
Yes. Booty, I don't know if he does. So if you're keeping Booty as the 5th receiver or the 6th receiver, depending on how it all shakes out with Tyquan, I think he's a stash. In an injury,
a little bit,
injury guy,
right? I mean, he's really good depth. I think in terms of a 4th receiver, 5th receiver, he's a really good option. They've had him out there on kick return, so he'll maybe give you some reps on special teams. He's a little bit of a stash, but what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
this is a team that has struggled to find receivers. I think that they can afford to stash a guy. That they should do that. They should take the chances they need to take to hit on a receiver because his upside is significant.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that you keep him anyways. All right, running back. I want to talk a little bit about the running backs. I think there's 2 locks. Zeke and Ramondre are your 2 locks. Then you get into, I feel like in the second year with a 4th round pick with Pierre Strong, I think you keep those guys usually. They never cut 4th round picks as rookies.
Right.
A 4th round
Shout
pick.
out Pat's Cat.
Yeah, 4th round pick in the second year. I'm sure it's happened before. I think it happened with one of the quarterbacks that they drafted in the 4th round, actually. But
yeah, well, also, I mean, like,
Kevin O'Connell or
they've
one
done,
of those
I mean,
guys.
beyond the fourth round, like Duke Dawson. I guess he wasn't cut, he was traded. But
Yeah. I think that I think Pierre Strong's going to be on this team.
I think so, too.
So the question really boils
There's
down
also
to,
that element with him, like with Douglas, of he gives them something they don't have in terms of his speed at running back.
Right. So then the question boils down to, do they keep 4 at running back? And the fourth, that competition would obviously be J.J. Taylor, Kevin Harris, Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
Depending, I know they call Ty Montgomery a wide receiver, and whatever. But do you think it's worth it to keep a 4th running back on the team? I lean towards them keeping a 4th running back simply because they pretty much always do.
Yeah.
Especially since that Cordero Patterson, Steven Jackson era where they had to like scrap for running backs at the end of the year. They pretty much always keep 4. So I lean towards that direction. And if I had to pick right now today, I'd pick J.J. Taylor. I think J.J. Taylor has done enough. And I also think you just mentioned that Pierre Strong brings a different element. I think so does J.J. Taylor. And I think that he's improved significantly in the passing game and blitz pickup and ability to stand up against blockers at 5'6". I've been impressed with him this summer, and I think that he's earned a spot.
Yeah, I think I want to see what I feel like it's still open. I want to see what he does Friday night, but he definitely, like Kevin Harris, you can get on the practice squad. It really, to me, all comes down to what do they think of Ty Montgomery? Do they trust Ty Montgomery? If they give him a roster spot, will he stay healthy? Will he be available? Because can they practice squad J.J. Taylor again? Or are they going to have to use one of those veteran spots?
No, they can. I think
I know they can, but like...
So he's in year 3. So
4.
No, 3.
4.
Is it 4?
Yeah, because he's the cam year. He's COVID year. 2020, 2021, 2022. This will be his 4th year.
So this is his 4th year.
So I just don't know. Is he...
I always forget if it's 4 or more or if it's 4+, but the rule is 4 accrued seasons.
Yeah.
So once you hit 4, you become a vested veteran. I think because he's heading into year 4, I believe that he still has to go through waivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder what'll happen with him. But to me, it all comes down to Ty Montgomery. Where are they at with him? Do they trust him to stay healthy? Because he is the best. Like he's the best player of the group, and I don't think anybody would debate that. But are you going to keep him, risk losing J.J. Taylor, and then Ty Montgomery gets hurt in 2 weeks, and now what?
Right. It's also tough because Ty Montgomery is not going to run the ball. Like you're not handing the ball off to Ty Montgomery.
They used him like that last year. It was brief, but they did.
They haven't this summer. I know
he
hasn't been out there. But they really haven't. He's been working out with the wide receivers. Like he's been going through positional drills with the wide receivers.
So maybe does it become this? If they think he's a receiver, does he essentially get bumped by Douglas and Booty?
Montgomery?
Yeah.
I currently have Montgomery off the team.
I have him off too, but I hadn't considered it in that.
Yeah.
You're right, though. If he's repping, they might see that as carrying a 7th receiver, not as carrying a 4th running back.
Yeah. I think I could see that. Where are we?
That's also a spot where if somebody gets cut loose elsewhere, I could see them bringing somebody.
Yeah. Where are we with Kevin Harris?
You can get him on the practice squad.
Yeah.
He'll play this year. I mean, he'll end up, whether it's an elevation, whether it's getting signed after guys get hurt, like he'll be here, but they got him on the practice squad last year. I don't think he showed anything last year. I don't think he showed anything in camp that like you're going to risk losing him. So I think he's just back on the practice squad.
He's 3.5 yards in a cloud of dust. That's Kevin Harris. I think he has some ability to push the pile because he's a bigger back. But in terms of actually breaking tackles and his creativity with the ball in his hands is very, very pedestrian. So I agree with you on that in the practice squad. I'm gonna keep vouching for J.J. Taylor. I am.
If he has another game Friday night like he had the other night, I'll put him on.
Yeah. I think that he should have a real shot. Like, I feel like he deserves a real shot. I think he's improved his game significantly. And if he gets waived here, then I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a shot somewhere else.
Just the big thing with him that I've seen that I want to see again this week is the pass pro. And, when a guy's 5'6", what's that going to look like? To see, and he's making plays in pass pro. We already talked about the offensive line. We know what that situation is. If he wants to be here, he's going to have to pass block. So that, to me, is what makes or breaks it for him. He can catch the ball. He can make guys miss. We know that.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to show up in pass pro.
My throat is, hour plus in. We're starting to get to the throat issues.
All right.
Anyways, so we did running backs, did receivers. I think we're pretty much on the same page on both of those. We might be on different pages on tight end. I know your last projection had tight end just with 2 guys, right? It was Henry and Gesicki are obvious. This was one of the hardest decisions I've make on the roster projection. I've gone back and forth on tight end like 17 times. On the one hand, I can see that it's a lot like last year where they have 2 established veteran tight ends that they're paying a lot of money to that are going to eat up all of the snaps in Henry and Gesicki. But on the other hand, neither one of those guys is really a good blocker. And both of those guys get hurt sometimes, especially Gesicki is hurt.
Yeah, right.
So carrying 2 tight ends, I understand the philosophy that Sokol, Firkser, those guys are practice squad guys that could probably get through to the practice squad. But I think that there's something to be said for Sokol, who's made a case as an inline blocker, certainly the best inline blocker that they have in camp. And Firkser's made a case with his versatility. And ran a great route yesterday on Jabril Peppers. Not that I'm going to put him on the roster because of one route in practice, but he's got that versatility to line up in different spots. He can run routes. He's a little bit of a nimble guy. And then there's Sokol, who's just your typical blocking tight end, blocking specialist that can play on first down and short yardage. Where are you at tight end? I like I said, I go back and forth on this.
I still think they keep 2 because, again, you can get Sokol and Firkser on the practice squad and elevate them as you need. Now, if they do find a roster spot, so elevate as you need, they're different players, so you're going to elevate based on the matchup. And week 1, I would think, would be the better blocking tight end, Matt Sokol. Yeah. If they find Sokol's on the roster for week 1 and then gets cut, move back to the practice squad, and they bring somebody else in for week 2. But I don't think there's going to be a third consistent tight. Guys might pop on the roster here and there, but I don't think there's going to be a third tight end on the roster consistently this season. They'll just bring guys up from the practice squad, sign them.
I hear you. I'm right now I'm leaning towards putting Firkser on. I think he's done enough to warrant it, and I think that it at least has in your back pocket the option to play him at fullback. It's at least in your back pocket.
Do they want that option, though? Do they care?
I think in certain situations they might.
On the goal line?
Goal line, short yardage.
But they've done this before. Use a guard or use
the
Landon Roberts.
I don't like that.
I don't mind it.
Give me a real fullback.
You are campaigning for a real fullback.
I love fullbacks.
And I'm the one who's going to sit here and say you can just find a big body to block for a couple plays a game. I don't know that you need to use a roster spot on that guy.
I think, and I will always stand by this, and I get that there's ways to do it without a fullback, but I feel that there's real schematic advantages to having a fullback. Real schematic advantages.
In the context of their offense?
They're going to still run under center, I would say, probably 30% of the time. So, yeah, I think there's the real schematic advantage, of course, to having a fullback is that when he lines up in the backfield, he can go either direction. He can go left or right.
All right.
So you can add a block to either direction of the formation, whereas when you have 2 tight ends, they have to line up somewhere on the line, and they're there, right? They're not – you can motion them across and things like that, but it's easier to do it from the backfield. I feel like that's was a missing ingredient for them last year in short yardage and a big reason why they weren't as good of a short yardage team.
I just don't see how it fits in the context of their current offense. I think it's going to become a massive tell when you put the fullback out there.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it was a massive tell with McDaniels, but still worked.
Fair.
Still worked. All right, so
you can also in the games you want that you just elevate him from the practice squad.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a sucker for the fullback. I like it. I think good. McDaniels, Shanahan, guys that are know a million times more about offense than I do are proponents to the fullback. So that's good enough for me. Offensive line. This one. So last year they only kept 8 offensive linemen initially. I feel like that's a little thin for this team just because of all the uncertainty along the offensive line. I think you do want to keep your depth, but you're going to keep the 5 guys we've been talking about: Trent Brown, Cole Strange, Andrews, Onwenu, Reef. Those guys are all going to be on the team. I think the 3 rookies are going to be on the team.
Yeah.
So keep doing that. So Mafi, Jake Andrews. So the question is, that's 8, and they kept 8 last year. Is Connor McDermott worthy of a 9th guy spot? My guy Jason Hines, is he worth the 9th spot? Do they keep 9 guys?
They're handcuffed into keeping 8. I almost feel like they have to keep a 3rd tackle because Trent Brown's 1.
Right.
So is 2, but he's a project.
Yeah.
Maybe Riley Reif is 3, but if he's at guard, he's at guard.
Yeah.
So that's either McDermott or if Calvin Anderson gets activated, Calvin Anderson. But I do feel like they kind of have to keep another tackle.
Yeah, I have it at 9 right now, and I have it with Connor McDermott. I just
Same.
Simply because I don't know if Calvin Anderson's going to be here. So I when I say be here, I mean healthy and be available. So I have it with 9 with McDermott. Moving over to the defensive side of the football here, not a whole lot of questions, I don't think. I think there's some guys on the defensive line, like is Sam Roberts going to make this team? Is Carl Davis going to make the team, or is he going to be somebody that gets cut and then brought back? They love Carl Davis. I think credit to where credit is due. Your boy, one of your boys, Jeremiah Farms, has had a really good two preseason games of run defense. He's been really good. I don't think it's enough to make the team. I think he's a practice squad guy that if they had to play him in a game because of injuries, he would be a good depth. But he's made a little bit of a push. But for the most part, that group is pretty solidified because you have all the veteran locks. I think the only one that could be the surprise cut of the year is Lawrence Guy, or maybe a trade. But I still think that they keep on. They hold on to Lawrence Guy.
I think they're going to hold on to him, too. Yeah. The leadership and all that. I think he'll be here. I wonder, like, Carl Davis, could they get him on the practice squad and bring him back when they need? And he's kind of had, a rough couple games here. So that's another spot where I think they could go external. We already saw them try, right? Yeah. We saw them try to sign Marquand McCall before he failed the physical. So I do think that defensive tackle is a spot that's still sort of up in the air.
The other spot that I think just in general, because they have so many bodies in the defensive backfield at safety and at corner, guys like Sean Wade, Joshua Bledsoe, like these are the guys that are kind of on the bubble right now. At corner, then obviously the 2 rookie corners. We don't know what's going on with Isaiah Bolden. My guess is that he's going to redshirt the year, would be my assumption, but that's just a guess. Amir Speed, I don't know if he's done enough to make the team. I know that Patriots fans are. I know a lot of Patriots fans are sick of Miles Bryant. I get it. Miles Bryant's making this team.
Miles Bryant's absolutely making the team.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Miles Bryant's been really good.
He's had a very good summer.
Yeah, so I think that playing him less at like true slot corner where he's asked to cover receivers is going to help him. He's been really, really good all summer long, and I think that he's going to be he's going to 110% on. Like I would almost put him in the lock category at this point of being on the team. But where do you have some of those fringe DBs like a Speed, like a Bolden, like a Wade, Joshua Bledsoe? I think those are some other guys that are kind of on the bubble.
I have Bledsoe on. That's another guy I think they just really like, and he's played a ton with the starters. So I think they're planning for him to make the team. Those other defensive back, unless something happens where, Jonathan Jones has to open the season on IR, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I have it just as the 5 corners, just Gonzalez, John Jones, Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, and Miles Bryant.
Yeah.
I think that's the list. I don't know that Amir Speed's shown me quite that much. Like, again, that's another guy you can get on the practice squad and elevate. I know people are going to say you're talking about elevating 10 practice squad players for each game. You can only do 2. You pick it based on the matchups. Maybe he gets signed later on, but him, Sean
Bill
Wade.
called him a developmental player yesterday.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really
him
bode well.
Him and Sean Wade, I think, are just kind of like just on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I think Sean Wade's had a sneaky good summer. I know he got beat on the touchdown last week against Green Bay, but I think he's been pretty good this summer because they've been playing him in his real position.
But the problem is, which is the slot. They have enough slot corners. They need a boundary guy.
So the only reason why I think he's got a legitimate chance to make the team is because all their slot corners are tiny, and he's 6'1". So there's one. They would have one slot corner that could actually play man-to-man coverage against a slot receiver who's not 5'9", which there's something to be said for that, especially against certain teams that might have some bigger slot guys that they go up against. You might want that there. I just think that he's played well enough to maybe make the team. I wouldn't be surprised if a team is paying attention and has watched the film in the preseason if he's somebody that gets claimed off waivers, if he does get cut. So we'll see what happens with Sean Wade. I'll give you a couple minutes on your kickers as well, because this is getting a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like it was over. We were almost ready to call it. The fat lady was warming up, and now all of a sudden Behringer had a great game in Green Bay, right? He has the two ridiculous kicks in Green Bay, but he's been a little bit inconsistent in practice. And now Chad Ryland seems like he's dealing with something or has the yips, and they've really given Nick Folk every single chance to keep his job. They have.
And they might keep both. I still am not ruling out them keeping both.
God, here we go.
You can't rule out them keeping both, Evan. I wouldn't put it past them.
We just talked for about 25 minutes after you were done with your Springsteen thing.
All right, whatever.
Yeah, for 25 minutes about 6 receivers, 4 running backs, like 9 offensive linemen. Where's the spot for a second kicker?
I don't know, but I think they're going to try to find one.
Oh, my gosh.
If not, they should trade Nick Folk. Because have you seen what's going on like around the league? There's not enough kickers. And teams are desperate for a kicker. And they should try. I think they could get something for Nick Folk.
Right.
But
I do too.
It's still a full rotation.
That is.
If Ryland wasn't a 4th-round pick, I'd say it's still an open competition.
Yeah.
But they're not cutting Chad Ryland.
Right.
So then why are they giving Nick Folk so many chances if they know Chad Ryland's going to be here? I think it's to try to earn a roster spot.
In practice, it has to be to try to earn a roster spot because nobody's watching practice.
Right.
But in the games, it could be to audition.
Okay, but they're doing it in practice.
Yeah.
So why else is that happening? If they know Chad Ryland's going to be here, and honestly, he has stuff he has to work through.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see him kick the day after going 0 for 3
and
see where he's at. But it was Nick Folk's day. Why are they letting Nick Folk kick in practice if Chad Ryland's going to be here?
I said off the top of this when I teed this up, I think that it's still a legitimate competition at kicker. I also think that there's a whole lot of respect from Bill Belichick's side of things for Nick Folk. He's talked at length about Nick Folk's knowledge of the game and knowledge of the kicking game and how to handle different weather, like all the stuff that he's gushed about Nick Folk over the last couple of years. So I think out of respect for that, I think that we're going to give you a shot. Like, yeah, we drafted this kid in the 4th round. I mentioned earlier in the show they never cut 4th-round picks.
Right.
All that.
They literally have never cut a healthy 4th-round pick under Bill Belichick.
Yeah, so all that is true and out there, but I think that they want to give Nick Folk every chance that he can have at potentially winning the job still or keeping his job.
But winning the job or just earning. So it goes to that at-large roster spot thing.
Yeah.
So for people
you're going to have 2 kickers on this team.
I wouldn't, but they might.
No, you would. You would love it.
I wouldn't.
You would.
I wouldn't. I don't think it makes sense.
Over there. You would.
No, because I know how much it's getting under your skin. I wouldn't do it.
So let's play this out.
Okay.
So you're telling me that that they might keep 2 kickers. Fine. So, in your theory of them potentially keeping 2 kickers, is it college style where you have your long distance kicker and your short distance kicker?
And then Ryland does kickoffs.
Or are they going to scratch Ryland every single week and just roll with Folk?
I mean, they could do what they did in 21 where they kept Nordine. He was inactive week 1. They elevated, or I guess Folk would be on the roster, but they could do what they did in week 1, what they did in 21, which is keep both and then IR one,
right?
Which would probably be Ryland. I don't think you're keeping Folk to IR him.
No.
But it could also be because the whole thing last year, Folk fell off at the end of the year. And it was, is this his age? He's 38. Or was it now he has to handle kickoffs and it's just a lot of wear and tear on the leg? There may be an element of, well, all right, we have Chad Ryland here to kick off. See if that regression last year was real or not.
So not only are you telling me that they're going to keep 2 kickers on the 53-man roster, excuse me.
Yeah.
You think that they're going to have 2 kickers active on game day?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Honestly,
goodness.
if they do that and scratch, them doing that and scratching one is almost worse to me. If they keep one in IR, if they keep 2 initially in IR one, whatever. But
yeah,
I would. If you're going to keep 2, then do it. If you're going to do it right. It would kind of be my take on that.
Okay.
And I think the idea would be, all right, we're going to see what Folk looks like without having to do kickoffs. And if he's still struggling and we know it's age regression, then we cut him, however many weeks in. You figure out how long you're going to give him.
They're going to be the University of New England Patriots.
Right. And Chad Ryland, the New England Hawkeyes, and Chad Ryland comes in. Or Folk's still good, then all right. Folk's your guy from 40 in, 45 in, whatever it is. Chad Ryland's your guy from 50-plus in kickoffs.
Jeez. All right.
That's what it would look like to me.
We do have some players to watch in the Titans game, but I want to answer some of these emails as well. We do have a few of them. So here's one about Mac. This is from Adam in California. Hey, guys, I know you guys were Concerned about Mac's internal clock with pressure. If the O-line is terrible again this year, would be damaged goods with 2 years with bad O-line play. Also, we just move on from Guy with the play of the run game? So the first question here is just, are you concerned that the offensive line play could be so bad that it could David Carr Mac Jones? And for people that are too young to get that reference, David Carr, the Texans had a terrible offensive line, and it ruined David Carr's career because he never recovered from the internal clock and yada, yada, yada. Do you think that is in play for Mac, or are you that concerned about it?
Well, first off, Josh Rosen. Much more modern example.
Yeah, but I think Josh Rosen also might have just sucked.
No, I think that. Do you remember watching him in Arizona?
Yeah, it was bad.
He threw from the pocket twice in 8 games.
Yeah,
whatever pocket there was. Yeah, I am a little worried about it. I am, and it kind of goes back to last year. He was already sped up last year, and that's the thing. I think if he is going to get sped up this year, it's going to happen quicker because he already was. I think that there are some elements to scheme around it that they can do that will help, but the reality is, you go down 10 points, you got to drop back and throw.
Okay.
And that's what you have to do. So I am a little worried about it. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I don't think it's impossible either. I think it's a valid concern.
Okay. This one's from Craig. I agree with you. I think it's a valid concern, but I have been cautiously optimistic about Mac's internal clock and the way he's handling pressure.
So
based off of the
I think
Packers
he's
game.
fine right now. I'm not worried about him. I think the issues from last year he's put to the side, but those are never going to go away. And I just think he's more susceptible to being sped up now than the average quarterback because of it would be very easy for him to get back in the mindset he was in last year.
Fair. All right. Craig in Charlotte asks, who's been the most impressive rookie in training camp? Who has come the furthest along? And then, of course, because we had to, he asked me specifically if I'm ready to admit that I was wrong about Keon White. So,
I was going to say Keon White's probably been the most impressive.
Yeah.
He's just been excellent. He's a grown man. He doesn't look like a rookie at all.
Yeah.
Very few rookie moments from him.
He was good in practice yesterday too.
Yeah, so he stud. Like I think I might be higher. Gonzalez has had a rough couple days. I might be higher on Keon White than Gonzalez at this point.
So I think Gonzalez is. I think I keep saying this because I'm trying my best to protect the hysteria of it when Gonzalez has a bad week one against A.J. Brown and everybody freaks out, right? Because there are going to be some growing pains with Gonzalez. I'm just telling you all that right now.
It's more than I thought there were going to be. I'm not worried about him long term, but he's not quite as polished as I thought he was going to be.
He's 21.
That's part of it.
He was an underclassman, right? He's an early declare as a junior.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's raw. He's still a little bit raw. And in man coverage, when you say, Christian, you got this guy, he can go step for step with pretty much everybody that they've put him up against in camp this summer. Yeah. In zone, he's still a little bit raw. He's easily manipulated. His spacing in zone isn't always the best, or his ability to, midpoint routes hasn't always been the best. There's going to be some growing pains with Christian Gonzalez. The most impressive rookie, I would agree, is Keon White. Am I ready to admit that I'm wrong? I'm stubborn. I don't like admitting that I'm wrong very often. I'm ready to admit that I was wrong about the way that he plays faster than I thought he would.
So the other
he has
thing,
a much better motor and he plays faster.
I will give you the out here if you want. I remember we had this conversation like a day or two after the draft. I think we had it on the show.
Yeah.
You didn't like the Keon White pick in the moment because I remember you saying this to me. It wasn't so much about him. It was about his fit in their defensive scheme.
Yeah.
And then when they drafted Marte Mapu, which happened 24 hours later, you felt better because it recontextualized what the defense was going to look like.
Yeah,
so
I also think
that's a fair out. I will give you that out.
So I also think that with Keon, I really truly believed, and I'm still not 100% sold that he can play standing up, but I looked at a 6'6", 280-pound guy and said, you're going to play him at stand-up outside linebacker, and said, there is no freaking way.
I never thought they were going to do that.
And the reason why I feel like I've been swayed is because guy's a freak athlete. I don't think I realized quite how athletic he was. He did not play or look this athletic at Georgia Tech. Like, he didn't look this fluid.
He did sometimes.
He had that one play where he carried the wheel route
what
that
I'm
everybody
thinking?
got
Let me ask you
obsessed
this. Did you watch – you didn't, but I'm going to ask you anyway to out you. Did
Yeah.
you watch any of him playing tight end at Old Dominion?
No.
If you had watched him playing tight end at Old Dominion, you would have known.
Why would okay. So
Why would you watch that? Because then you see what kind of athlete he is.
Macro probably watched that, and that's why he's here. So,
Lesson learned for next year.
Kudos to Macro.
We are going to do a quick thing at the end of the show that you don't want to do that we're going to do anyway, and I'm going to give you an example of why you should do that.
That's why they pay Macro, and that's why they pay Cam Williams the big bucks.
But this is the thing about covering the draft. I feel like every year I walk away, and there's a couple things I'm like, I should have considered that. I would have figured this out had I known that, and you learn, and you grow. So now you know next year when we get to some of these position change guys, you don't have to – I'm not saying go back and watch all 2 seasons of him playing tight end.
You wanted me to watch
every
every target, every snap of tight end.
Just watch like 5-10 reps just to see how he moves in the open field. Would have helped.
He, at 280 pounds, 285 pounds, Keon White's athleticism is out of this world. It is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's an alien.
Unicorn
I
athlete.
honestly don't understand how he moves that well at that size. So
because he learned to move that well at like 255, 260 as a tight end, and then
never lost it,
and then put the weight
but
on.
I still don't know if I truly love him as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I still think he's a little bit big for that, and it might not show up in a straight line. But I think if he gets isolated in space with running backs and things like that, it could. But I will admit that I think he's going to be a regular contributor as a rookie, and I was too low on him.
Yeah, he absolutely should. I would agree with that.
All
Especially like to go back to the Ross projection stuff. Anthony Jennings kind of being on the bubble.
Yeah.
You're going to need that if he doesn't make the team. That's your strong side early down edge setter.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Do you think he's a 3-down player right now? I think he can be.
I doubt it because with them, they tend to not want to put that much on a rookie's plate.
Okay.
So
if he had to be, do you think he could be right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's better against the run still.
Well, yeah, he's going to be better at one than the other.
I think the one thing that I think he's still working on is really having a plan with the pass rush and not just being a bull in a china shop, but actually having a actual plan and then like breaking down,
which makes sense
getting the
for a guy who's only played defensive end for 2 years.
He had that great pressure against the Texans, but then C.J. Stroud got out. He just kind of got pushed.
He overran him. He overran him. He overpursued. Yeah.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Donovan here asks about the 3 quarterback rule. A couple questions here. Can you and Alex speak to the new quarterback rules? Cunningham considered a lock to be carried on that spot, or a league rule is going to cause them to drop another player on the 53 to keep him. So he has to be on the 53-man roster to be the emergency quarterback.
Yes.
So he has to make the team.
Yes.
So it's not a 54th roster spot.
Right. It's a 47th.
It's a 47th game day roster spot. I am inclined to believe that they are not really thinking too much about the 3 quarterback emergency rule at the moment. Obviously, we've discussed ways that they could manipulate it to use Cunningham, but
I've come off that take.
Yeah.
Because the thing I've described, if they do it, will be outlawed by October. And I just think you can't go into the season with that as your plan.
I currently have Malik Cunningham off the team.
Really?
I do.
I have him on because I think they're showing you that they want him on.
I agree.
The fact that he's playing quarterback, he's playing receiver, he's playing gunner, he's returning kicks,
he's running routes at receiver.
So
I wouldn't say he's playing.
But what
receiver.
I would say, I think it's this thing. They like him as a project.
Yeah.
And they maybe know they can't get him to the practice squad because I think there are some teams that might bring him in as a 3rd quarterback. If you try to get him to the practice squad, there might be some teams that put him on the 53 as a developmental quarterback. So it's all right. We got to keep him. How do we justify this roster spot knowing he's not ready as a receiver yet? Well, maybe there's some package stuff at quarterback. Maybe it's playing special teams.
Yeah.
When they put a guy everywhere like they're doing with him, to me that signals, all right, we're trying to figure out how much, like, we're giving you every chance possible to earn this roster spot. And they seem very happy with him. So they seem to be signaling to me that they want to keep him.
Okay. I don't know.
It sucks that the game ended early Saturday because it would have been nice to see a little more from a quarterback.
Yeah,
because I think that's really how he earns the roster spot. So I hope he plays Friday night.
I think he could have made. This is where I feel bad a little bit for Malik Cunningham. Yeah. I think he could have made the team as a quarterback. I actually think in this case, the receiver thing hurt him.
I don't think so.
I think it did because he's not going to play receiver in the NFL.
At all.
No.
You don't think he can get to that point?
No.
I haven't seen nearly enough to say that definitively yet.
Maybe in like 2 years. But in terms of
how long did they carry Julian Edelman as a punt returner and a cornerback before he started playing wide receiver full time?
He was a full-time returner.
And they're giving Malik Cunningham looks at return. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're trying to give him ways to justify his roster spot in addition to playing receiver. That's why I think they're going to keep him, because they are doing things to justify him keeping that spot on top of being a receiver so they can keep him in the building and develop him long term.
I understand what you're saying. I would have I said this when they signed him as a UDFA. Like, he's got good quarterback instincts. He's got good athleticism,
and he'll do some of that too.
He's got an arm. I would have just I would have made him a quarterback.
Evan, if their long-term plan for him was to play quarterback, he'd be wearing a red jersey at practice.
I don't agree with their long-term plan for him.
Okay, fair. But we're not saying if Evan Lazar was in the room, who's he putting on the roster? It's who do we think they're going to put on the roster?
Yeah, this is the whole semantics thing that we get into.
But you asked me if I think he's going to make the roster, not would I put him on.
Here's my last point on Malik Cunningham. Why give all those quarterback reps to Trace McSorley? Like, why do that?
What are all those? He hasn't played in like 3 weeks.
No, but all the reps early in camp. And
I don't know.
That, to me, like, why?
Because they wanted
why not peek at Cunningham there at quarterback?
Because
instead?
they wanted Cunningham to work as a receiver, because that's what they want to develop him. That's why. Whether you agree with it or not, that's the answer to the question.
I think that there was enough evidence on his Louisville film that he could develop at quarterback, and I think that he showed enough in the drive against Houston that he could develop at quarterback. So
and he did that, and then he started playing quarterback more. So maybe that was eye-opening for them.
All right. Well, let's. Speaking of quarterbacks, I did want to touch on this just briefly because they were talking about it on your show there, and Trey Lance. Trey Lance is the third quarterback. He lost the backup job to Sam Darnold. Obviously, lost the starting job to Brock Purdy. I was a Trey Lance guy. I'll hand up. I like Trey Lance in the draft. I saw the tools that the Niners also saw and traded up like 17 picks to take Trey Lance, by the way. I have two takes on Trey Lance. One, I don't really want the Patriots making a trade for Trey Lance. I think if you make that trade for Trey Lance, it's next offseason with a full spring and a full summer. Basically, that trade is for 2024 if you make it now. That you're not trying to get Trey Lance ramped up to practice and play in any games this year. That's not going to happen.
Right.
You're not going to take him into the scheme. You'd
have to redesign the entire offense.
The train is already rolling.
It would be more. I agree with you. If they are really worried about Mac Jones, and they want to hedge their bets, it's another long-term option at quarterback. That's essentially what it would be. It would be, all right, we're not sure if Mac is the guy. The other thing is, I don't think Trey Lance is going to get traded right away. There might be some time where you can get into the season and get a better look. Look, I've said this before. If Mac's not the guy, and I liked Trey Lance coming out. I liked him as a project player.
Yeah.
We're kind of into the project. Now, and I know I'm in the minority on this. Kyle Shanahan, sneaky bad with quarterbacks. His offense is good for quarterbacks.
So this was my other take on Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I have never seen a team invest as much draft capital as the 49ers have invested in Trey Lance. Draft the kid third overall, and then bury him on the depth chart.
Which, what are they seeing? That they did that. That should be a sign that it's not going well.
That's a fair point, but my take on it is because I was a Lancer.
You were a big Trey Lance guy.
I was a Lance.
I think you had him over Fields, right?
No,
okay.
Not that big. No,
you did at one point.
No. I had Justin Fields number 2 the whole time.
As you should have.
Yeah. Trey Lance, I think, was done dirty by the 49ers.
A little bit. Yeah, he was. Well, first of all, they never needed to do that.
Okay, but the point being that we all knew that he was a projection.
Yeah.
We all knew it was a project. He hadn't started in any real game since 2019 when he was drafted in 2021. They had the COVID year. He had one game. It was terrible, right? And then in 2019, he was awesome. They won the FCS National Championship, and he was great. 2020, COVID year, North Dakota State, right? North Dakota State only played one game. It wasn't a good game for Lance. And then in 2021, he gets drafted. He has not played meaningful football in like 5 years. He's always been competing for the starting job. Like, Bryce Young gets drafted number 1 overall. Anthony Richardson this year gets drafted 4th overall. It wasn't even a conversation. Like, Bryce Young was the starting quarterback in Carolina a week into camp. And now Anthony Richardson's been named the starter 2 weeks ago, right? So it wasn't even a conversation. And we're at the point now where I just feel like he's done dirty by the 49ers. I don't think he was ever given the opportunity to really get a fair shake at it. And he was the type of player that needed to play.
Yeah.
You couldn't, like, I get the gap year, like the Patrick Mahomes strategy with Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021, but just in general. With
Alex Smith.
Well, I'm talking about the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo, but yeah. Like, it's the Patrick Mahomes model.
Same thing.
Right. But he needed to play in games. He needed practice reps. He should have gotten every single practice rep that they possibly could have given him until 2 weeks before the season, where they really needed to start to get Jimmy ready, right? So I feel like he was done dirty, and I feel like his developmental track went completely helter-skelter because of how the 49ers handled it.
The problem is, and to bring it back to the point of should the Patriots trade for him, is he too far gone? And I think there's a real case to be made that he's too far gone.
If he's too far gone, because he hasn't had the opportunity. I know he got hurt, right? And I know
but
that
it's
was
that
a big
kind of
part
thing
of it.
where, like, you still have to start from square one with a guy that's 23 already.
Yeah.
So look, if they can trade like a conditional 7th for him, whatever, you might as well see if you can tap into the potential. But I've said this: if Mac Jones, don't screw around with Mac Jones this year. First of all, you need to give Mac Jones the real chances here, and bringing in Trey Lance is not doing that.
Trey Lance, but even if they traded for Trey Lance, it'd have nothing to do with this year.
But you don't think Mac's going to get asked about that, and Bill's going to start getting asked about it? Just don't open that Pandora's box.
He's a project for that. Maybe in 2024 he would have a chance with Mac.
I wouldn't touch Trey Lance until December. Let's put it that way.
I don't think he gets traded. I think he gets traded next offseason.
Okay, so I would do that for minimum, but I've said this, and I'm going to stick with this. Unless there's a scenario where a Brady or a Rodgers guy comes, like one of the generational, and who would be next? All those guys have now left their teams and retired, right? Or I guess, Rodgers hasn't retired. But
what do you mean?
We had this whole run of Brady out, Russell Wilson out, Rodgers out, Rivers out. Are there any of those guys left? Who's the next big quarterback we're looking at?
Russell Wilson.
No, out. No, nothing to do with him.
No, I'm just saying, he's,
But I'm trying to think, unless somewhere, some reason, some way, an elite quarterback, I guess maybe Lamar, but he signed the extension.
Right.
Unless you get one of these things where one of those elite quarterbacks becomes available again, if Mac is not the guy, go to the draft. It's going to be a really good year for quarterbacks. They're going to have a shot to get a guy. There's a bunch of different kinds of quarterbacks. So if they want another pocket passer, if they want a mobile guy, if they want this, if they want that, you can't. I'd bring in Trey Lance to see what he has left. I would not bring in Trey Lance to be like, all right, well, Mac Jones didn't work, so, we think we should have picked Lance. We're going to bring him in, and he's going to be the starter. No, you need a real concrete. If Mac Jones isn't the guy, you need a real concrete plan to replace him. Trey Lance is not a real concrete plan. He's a fun flyer, but that's all he is.
That's fair. All right, one last call, then we'll get into the players to watch for the Titans game. It's Mark in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey, Mark. It's your buddy Mark over here in Connecticut. Just had a quick question for you. What is the story with Trey Flowers? Is he going to play, or is he, when you're on PUP list, are you allowed to practice, or how does that all work on the PUP list? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
Ask you.
Thanks for the call, Mark. So he's not allowed to practice on the PUP list. If he starts the year on the PUP list, he's out for the first 6 weeks of the season, mandatory, out for the first 6 weeks. We've seen him bopping around practice, which is pretty common for guys that are injured on, we've seen Calvin Anderson. We saw Onwenu before he got out there yesterday. We've seen John Jones at times, Cole Strange. So it's pretty common for guys to be bopping around practice and either watching or, whatever. So we've seen Trey Flowers. He's been working out at practice off to the side. But I think if you had to ask me, what my official stance on Trey Flowers is in terms of his role on the team this year. I think he starts the year on PUP. If they get to week 7 and they have a concern about his spot in the defense, whether it's as an end or, obviously be as an end, but whatever way they see using him moving forward, pass rush guy, whatever, then I could see them activating him and saying, we've seen enough from some of these other guys, and it hasn't really been as good as we were expecting or hoping. So let's give Trey Flowers a chance. Essentially, stash him on PUP. And if you never use him, you never use him. But if you have to, or you need to, or you can, then he becomes activated in midway through the season.
I kind of look at him as in the role Jamie Collins was in last year, and he was here most of the season. He was on the practice squad. He played in like 2 or 3 games, but it was more. You heard some of the younger linebackers, or even a guy like Juwan Bentley, talk about how valuable his presence was as a leader, as a resource, as a teacher. And I think Trey Flowers can give you some of that, especially for a guy like Keon White, who, I mean, coming out, that was my comp for Keon White coming out. It was like, he's a bigger Trey Flowers.
More athletic Trey Flowers.
Trey Flowers was pretty when he first came out.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know. We knew because Matt Patricia kept on dropping him in coverage.
You remember 3rd and 3 against the Steelers, and he mans him up on Le'Veon Bell on the perimeter. Yeah. And I'm like, what are we doing?
What do you mean it's not a good coverage? You don't think that was a good idea?
I will say, so I don't know how much you looked at this stuff back then. Trey Flowers coming out of Arkansas was a great athlete, and then he tore his ACL as a rookie in the preseason.
Right, yeah, I remember
and
that.
He never totally, pre-ACL tear Trey Flowers, people forget what an athlete he was. But, I think just having him around as a resource, as an asset, if they end up activating him and he plays, so be it. But I think it's more just having a good voice in the locker room.
Okay, wrapping it up here. Players to watch for the Titans. Give me a couple that you have your eye on.
Like players on the Titans I'm watching?
No.
Oh.
Like to watch. Patriots players to watch.
I think we covered most of them. Cunningham, I want to see if he gets another look at quarterback.
Yeah.
Can Kayshon Boutte put the final stamp on it? The running backs who wins that 4th spot in the run defense, and the kickers.
So the whole team.
I didn't say the secondary. I didn't mention really any of the starters. I'm kind of good on the starters.
So I gotta admit, I do kind of want to see a little bit of something from Juju if the starters play. I'm not pressing panic buttons or anything like that. And I mentioned earlier in the show, I feel like maybe he's the type of guy that once the bright lights turn on in the regular season, the switch will flip and we won't talk about this anymore. I just haven't seen a ton of juice out of Juju with his route running and with his ability to get open in the practices or in the little bit of film we saw against the Packers. So I hope to see a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, this is the guy you brought in to replace Jacoby Myers. And
right.
At the same time, I think that you might get lucky and, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And Kendrick Bourne might end up just being that guy anyways. So it might end up being fine. But you thought you were moving on from Jacoby Myers to Juju. I banged the table for it. I said, he's a better after the catch. He's a more dynamic player. I also feel like you paid him a pretty good amount of money. And I don't know. I've seen a little bit, of it in the middle of the field, crossers, in cuts, red zone. I think that it's existed, but not a whole lot of burst down the field. We'll see how he looks. I'm steadfast with J.J. Taylor. I want to see if J.J. Taylor has another big game. I think that that's going to be the final seal of approval for him, and I think the same goes for Kayshon Boutte. I think both those guys, take every impression you got, right? And I think that they got one more, and this is it. Other than that, I think defensively, we mentioned it in the roster projection thing. I feels like defense is kind of easy to project right now. There's a lot of veteran guys. There's a lot of returners. It's pretty much status quo on that side of the football. I think some fringe guys like a Mac Wilson, for example, we mentioned him. I think that he's somebody that's still fighting for a roster spot. Josh Bledsoe, Sam Roberts, those types of players maybe. But yeah, I don't know. You don't seem anywhere near as concerned about Juju as I am.
No, you kind of said it before. I think he's a guy that when the regular season begins, he'll click on. He's looked good enough in practice with Mac that let's see it in the games that matter.
I fair. Do you think we see? Well, he's been hurt, so I don't know, or limited. I don't know if we'll see any more Pop Douglas than we've already seen.
I don't think so. No, he is. He's buried. He is fully buried. We'll see him week 1.
They parked the Ferrari in the garage, and they're leaving the Ferrari in the garage until summertime.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yikes. I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about that.
We talked about it on the Sports Hub on Monday. I don't love it. It went from this thing where you were super encouraged by like, wow, there's this rookie wide receiver and they're not even really playing him because they feel so comfortable where he's at. That's awesome. And then it became, well, maybe play him a little bit so he can get, up to speed with the NFL. And if he starts slow, I think there's going to be a lot of second guessing that decision.
Yeah, I don't deny that. I agree with you 100%. I have never seen in our time covering the team, maybe you remember a better example, I have never seen them bury a rookie like this, like a 6th round rookie. Like we're not talking about Christian Gonzalez getting starter treatment.
Right.
Like we're talking about, Christian Gonzalez hasn't even gotten started. He's played a ton in the preseason. He's played, I think he was somewhere around 30 snaps both games. Yeah. So he's played a ton. Keon White, Houston game, he's out there right away and playing. Like it's bizarre that they have buried him so much. I think we're beyond the bury him for the practice squad angle.
I said this a few weeks ago. They might be higher on him than we are.
So it's two things. It's either he's hurt.
Yeah.
He's been hurt this whole time, or they're so high on him that they just don't want the rest of the league to know.
Well, it could be a little bit of both, too.
Yeah.
There could be a little bit of, what's that? You stubbed your toe last night? All right, we'll just, go hang out over here.
Yeah.
We'll get to you when we get to you.
But, and this is, I get it. There's gamesmanship for every team. But, like, once it's on film against Philly, it's like the cat's out of the bag. So you have one game that maybe you could take the Eagles by surprise with. But once he's out there against Philly and playing a lot and catching passes, it's over. Like,
it is and it is. I mean, you're gonna have to do multiple things. His role will build throughout the year, but they really want to beat Philly. They want to get started off on the right foot. They want to win in front of Tom. All of that.
That's fair. All right, that's gonna do it here.
Hey, come on, you got to give me 2 minutes on this.
Oh my
we have the time.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
I posted this morning on 985thesportshub.com. My annual college football season is starting. Here are some potential Patriots draft picks to watch as Evan pulls out his phone.
Yep.
They're going to draft one of these guys, and you're going to end up loving them. And I'm going to be like, remember when you were on the phone when we had this conversation? We were talking about this? All right.
College football.
Here, potential Patriots.
College football week 0, which is like
the
draft next year.
We're talking draft.
Week 0 is like the preseason for college football. It's like when
that's not what it is.
It's like when
it's close to the Hall
plays
of Fame
like
game.
Appalachian State.
No, that nobody played. There's
70.
7 games total. That's not what it is.
Oh my God. So
anyway,
it's even worse than that.
Blake Corum, running back for Michigan. Nasty. If Ramondre's in a contract year, they might use a running back pick high.
They need more running backs, 100%.
They have one real running back in a contract next year, and he's in a contract year. Jacob Cowing, wide receiver from Arizona.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
You don't?
No.
Really good route runner. If Juju doesn't work out, you're going to like this guy.
Okay.
He's a really good route runner. He played for Jed Fish, so you have that connection.
The connections.
Cade Stover, they're going to need a tight end next year. Cade Stover, tight end from Ohio State.
Stover mac and cheese is really good.
6'5", 255 converted defensive end.
Oh, so he's the opposite of Keon
White.
Right,
reverse Keon White, who had a very productive season last year. Here's your guy.
All right.
This guy's supposed to go. So there's 3 tackles in this draft. 2 are supposed to go in the top 10.
Joe Alt.
Not Joe Alt. He's supposed to go in the top 10. Patriots are picking that high. They need a quarterback. J.C. Latham, Alabama's right tackle, 6'6", 360, projected first-round pick.
So, in like the NCAA game where they don't have the names, or they didn't have the names, I feel like there's so many Alabama linemen that you could just label them like that in the NFL, just like, oh, Jonah Williams, Alabama left tackle.
Yeah. J.C. Latham's going to be the guy you're going to be pounding the table for.
Okay.
You like to talk about that thing where when there's a star on a team, the Patriots pick the other guy?
Yeah.
So Jared Verse, the defensive end from Florida State, is a projected top 5 pick.
Yeah.
The guy that plays on the other side of him is a guy named Patrick Payton. Some Josh Uche vibes.
Okay.
I like him.
Your clock is ticking.
Max Melton, cornerback from Rutgers.
Oh, you've been telling me about
blocked
Max
4
Melton
punts
for
last
17 years. How is Max Melton still in college?
Because he keeps going back to school. I don't know.
You've been telling me about this
Finally,
for 3 years.
If they let Kyle Duggar walk, which they shouldn't do, Cooper DeJean from Iowa plays boundary corner, slot corner, box safety, defensive end, returns kicks, returns punts, covers kicks, covers punts. Scored 3 defensive touchdowns for Iowa last year. Cooper DeJean.
Oh, okay.
That's probably that he's going to be in the conversation for them in the first round next year.
All right. Are you done?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. On that note, no kickers. Thank God. We are wrapping it up here. The PU crew is here, and as Fred Kirsch walks by, and Deuce is behind the glass as well. Alex, you're sticking around.
I am sticking around.
Sticking around. So PU is starting in about 7 minutes. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.